I think there should be no more immigration indefinitely, because we just have too many people right now, and they're pouring in, and this is where I would draw a line even against Trump, is it's not just illegal immigration, it's legal immigration too. And what meaningfully is the difference between illegal and legal? Because illegal immigrants these days, there's not really much that they don't have access to that citizens do.
Why does that matter when we have so much unused space? It's ridiculous.
Government-owned land. I mean,
it's a ridiculously large amount of people that could fit in the space we have in America quite comfortably. And that number, we're so far off from it. It's ridiculous. The issue of quote unquote overpopulation or overcrowding is just an issue
ridiculous.
of how are we going to build stuff.
Yeah, I mean,
we should let people build stuff.
This comes down to not having. This comes down to not immigration as such. I mean, this really comes down to the government and how it involves itself into the economic sphere. Like, is the government allowing people to invest in apartments and more buildings and more cities and stuff like that? Is the government finally going to relinquish its governmental owned land where it's just literally trees and forests? Is the government going to do that? Well, the answer is no, right? But if the government would, release its hands off of that and stuff like that, we definitely have more than enough space to fit in a lot of people. So the issue here is not immigration.
Citizenship no longer confers any really exclusive benefits that you wouldn't get if you were a tourist.
Yeah, there shouldn't be any benefits, but
just a visa holder or even an illegal. I mean, in some of these cities, they give out IDs, they give out benefits. They're even talking about having them vote in local elections. So
talking about it, they're doing it.
I mean, in short, I think there is rational grounds to suggest, like, well, if you just popped up in the country and stuff like that and you're not like a real resident, you're just here to get a job or something like that, like maybe that's not grounds to say like, hey, I can vote in this election or something like that. There should be some conditions and like stipulations you should meet before you can say like, hey, I want to vote. So Nick Fuentes' is like problem here is not immigration. It's just like how the government is operating within like New York and stuff like that.
And what's more is it gets to the point of what are we really trying to do here? People say, well, they have to come here legally. Well, why do they have to come here at all? I mean, why do we need people here that don't speak English, are not educated, have nothing to offer us, and people that are going to change the country? I mean, what a lot of people don't think.
Offer us. There's a whole bunch of gathering of the facts. I'm not going to sit here and cite, things off the top of my head, but when we actually look at what literal immigrants are doing in this country, even as it is right now, like especially when we talk about STEM fields, when we categorize based on STEM fields, or we try to go with like big massive corporation productivity, a lot of these tech companies, a lot of our manufacturing, our production lines, all this stuff does involve the productive ability of people who immigrated here. So, and just the fact that this whole job thing that we're talking about right now, this whole need for the production of goods and a supply of goods needs people to produce them. Again, more fundamentally, by what right does he claim to block people off from these things? It's absurd.
We look at the people who do a lot of research on immigration, such as Brian Kaplan or Benjamin Ibis, the last name, Benjamin, the orange-headed guy, Benjamin Powell, or Card. His last name is Card. I forgot his first name and stuff like that. But these people have done remarkable research on like immigration, and like immigrants typically consume less welfare than a typical American, and they're producing a lot of wealth that goes into the economy. So like, what do you mean by what do they have to offer us? I think the question of what do they have to offer us is a bad premised question, but even if it was a good question to ask, like what they do offer us already is already there. Like they contribute a lot to the economy.
They have the potentiality to benefit us just as immensely as every other human being on the planet.
They're going to come to your neighborhood, they're going to come to your city eventually, and they're going to change it. They're going to meaningfully change the way that it is. And if you love your home, why would you want that to happen? People love to talk about diversity and all this. Well, I come from Chicago, 5 generations in Chicago. And the whole city's been transformed by immigration. And so Taylor Street, which was once an Italian neighborhood, and that's where my grandparents grew up and so on, it now is completely unrecognizable. And like,
And
It was once a British neighborhood and a indigenous people's neighborhood. What is any
Native
of this
Americans, like, yeah, I mean, again, someone as like Nick Fuentes is taking for granted, like, somehow traditionalism or your ancestry has some type of value. But I mean, I don't think he's ever gotten into a real conversation about why do these things have value in the first place.
The thing I was just recently watching some Thomas Sowell to refresh my mind on this, especially when he mentioned the Italians, Irish people. You're talking about people who went through a whole cycle of having crazy ghettos, run down, crime-ridden places, who went through a literal cultural cycle of changing these habits.
why would we want more of this? Let's keep America the way that it was. Let's make it better, you know?
Japan is such an interesting.
With all the people still in it who provided ideas that make it suck. Like, let me get this straight here. Is it that there's so many, the immigrant influence is so powerful through all the, better than all these proper thinking native born Americans allegedly, that how did we get to this point where it sucks? If they shifted that quickly? Were we that weak? Were our minds swayed that weakly? Like,
I mean, he's too focused on the type of people and stuff like that, and not noticing that, like, it's not just the people, it's the type of ideas that they hold and practice and stuff like that. So maybe you shouldn't be attacking the type of people and immigrants and stuff like that. You should be attacking the philosophic premises and making a rational and moral push towards some other ideas, instead of like, well, let's just do away with immigration.